Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Dave Peltz. Along with me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, Dr. Joe Hamlett. How are you doing today, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing pretty good, Dr. Dave.
Most excellent. For those of you who are joining us again, thank you. If you're new to the show, welcome. We are your personal, professional, and career development podcast. And for those of you that have visual, you'll see that we have yet another guest speaker with us today, Denise Griffitts. How are you doing this morning, Denise?
I'm so sorry I lost my little button. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you.
good. It's Sunday morning. I'm used to watching cartoons or something, something very in-depth. I'm doing very well, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, Denise, tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll introduce the topic.
Oh, I'm a podcaster. I'm a web developer by trade, but I'm a podcaster. My podcast, Your Partner in Success Radio, and I think you guys are invited and coming on pretty soon.
We are.
Is 17 years old. It's old enough to
Oh, wow.
drive, or I should
Wow.
throw it a debutante ball. I don't know what to do with it. But I started it quite honestly because I am a highly committed introvert. Now, I'm not shy and I don't have any filters, but I really do need to be alone physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, about 97% of the time. Now, I do get out. I'm out and about. I go to the grocery store. I'm not invisible, but it has to be on my terms. So podcasting it was. Well, there's
Wow.
another story
Wow.
to that too, but so I do podcasting, I do mentoring, coaching. Um, you need a website. I build WordPress sites in my sleep. So
Wow.
that's pretty
Wow.
much it.
WordPress. That's an impressive tool.
Yeah, yeah.
So, thank you for that. Our topic for today is podcasting as marketing. And for viewers and our listeners, Denise does not do video. She has a very unique logo. It says Denise Griffitts Nerd and Stilettos, which I absolutely love. And there's a stiletto on there. So I think that's a great segue into this topic. So, Denise, can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on podcasting as marketing?
I have been the work I do is about 20 years old. I started my web design company about 20 years ago. And I knew pretty much early, and this was before WordPress, y'all. I've been doing this a while. But I knew even then that if I was going to build any kind, it was all we had at the time was HTML. So they were very plain, not easy to navigate around websites, but their website, we had you out there. Your calling card, it's out there. It's very exciting times. But the thing is, I knew when I set up my first website that nobody was ever going to see it. Nobody, because I had no means of driving traffic to it other than, going and knocking on business doors and leaving my card. It, Marketing is critical. And marketing, and for me, for podcasting, it's the best way to get your voice heard. Whether you're a business, you're an entrepreneur, you're a small company, it doesn't matter. You have the opportunity to get your voice heard, and by proper marketing, unite with other people who are like-minded businesses or like-minded people. Create communities where you're talking about whatever it is that you want the world to know with your podcast. And I'm not explaining it really well. I can see it in my head. Does that help?
Yeah, we can see it perfectly. It's clear.
Uh-huh. Okay, now I'm just hurt.
So, I think that's a fantastic mindset because, to your point early on, there wasn't much awareness about podcasting, and that's one of the reasons Joe and I started our podcast. We when Joe and I had met, we had talked for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and we realized we should be doing something with this. So we started it, and to your point, kind of with your website, our first couple of episodes will never ever be heard or seen because they were horrible. So, refining your attitude and your concept of what you want to get out there is imperative.
It really is. And the thing is with podcasting, and listen, I'm going to warn anybody who feels like being warned because this comes from the heart. If somebody comes to you online or through an email, it doesn't matter how they're going to get there. They're going to come through social media. You're going to find somebody who's, oh, I can get you on a podcast in the top 1% in 6 months. Run,
Mhm.
run for your life. It's not going to happen. Don't don't buy into that. Podcasting, again, it's how you're going to get your voice heard. What are you delivering to a hungry audience? Because you're podcasting by finding markets, making sure that your SEO, everything in how you're getting your messaging out there through social media, through newsletter, doesn't matter. You're going to need to do all of those things. But the thing is, once you start connecting with other people, you're sliding in and out of each other's audiences. It's very important to connect, to network, and to do your best to uplift other people. Seriously. The last thing you want to do is critique or say something nasty about anybody in your sphere. Just don't do it. And if you can lift them up, do it. Okay, now I'm off my soapbox. Y'all need me for anything else?
Hey, Denise, I do have a question. So I would imagine in early years that you didn't have that big of an audience. So I'm just curious. Um, so how do you find those other podcasters or other people that you kind of start to call your network, your tribe, or whatever, however your community? What were you doing to grow that audience as far as your network? How did you do that?
Purely by accident.
Okay.
Absolutely. When I started 2008, there was nobody to teach me anything about podcasting. It was just a blip on the radar. And I'll tell you very quickly, and I know we discussed this in our virtual green room, but I became a podcaster many years ago, 2008, because a friend of mine who turns out is a podcaster, but she's a journalist, sent me a note and said, Denise, can I interview you? I said, sure. She said, okay, I'm going to record it and I'll send you a link. I said, okay. And I was thinking when she sent me the link a couple days later that it was going to be in ink or it was going to be in one of the trade magazines. I hit the button, I heard my own voice, and I did what we call in the Deep South a whole body frisson. I couldn't believe I sounded like that. To me, I kept waiting to hear myself saying, Happy birthday, Mr. President. I think I sound ridiculous. Did it stop me? No, because I knew that that was the only way, because there are no pictures of me on the internet. There never have been, never will be. I'm a very private person. I'm a personable person, but you're not going to find a whole lot of personal anything because I don't need to share it. So having a podcast for me literally was marketing 101 before there was such a term. And I'm sorry, I probably didn't answer your question. Phrase it again for me.
No, I
I
was
took
just
off.
I, I was just curious how you started to grow your network, your audience, your because you said you know you need to find other podcasters kind of with the same mindset, the same intentions, and I was just and you kind of said you fell into podcasting by accident, but I'm just curious again how you start to build your network of podcasters, friends, or community. How did you do that?
Honestly, it was an accident. It truly was.
Okay.
I I promised myself I had one fan on Facebook for my brand new podcast, and he was my guest. He has since passed, and I was going to do my outset, what I said on Facebook, and I said it where anybody would listen. We will broadcast live on Friday, and I wasn't there one Friday, and I got a phone call. Denise, are you okay? And I went, oh my God, people are paying attention. I had no idea. As a podcaster, I hope you guys haven't experienced this, but you tend to feel a little invisible.
Mm.
I do. Because, people, and part of that's because I'm not visible online anywhere, my image anyway, but sometimes I feel like people will contact me. Can I be a guest? Can I be a guest? And I'll look at who they are and what they're talking about. They have no business being on my show. They didn't even go look. So that part, when I say I feel invisible, it's like you didn't do your homework.
Right.
Oh, now I'm
Yeah.
whining. Okay, I've been on a soapbox. I'm whining. It's Sunday. What what can I do to help?
Yeah, right. I find it interesting and kind of fascinating that you've taken the approach to not have a visual presence. And I think that kind of speaks volumes in many different ways because in today's social media, it is so much about the visual, the people picking their noses and getting spots on, big shows for, a lot of money. And it's like, what about the content? What content are you delivering that's going to impact people positively aside from picking your nose, or taking your bicycle and jumping off a cliff, I mean, what message are you trying to send to better other people's lives? And that's what Joe and I are committed to at the shows. We've had our experiences, but you've had your experiences and other people had their experiences that we find very valuable, like this topic, podcasting as marketing. I mean, you really are marketing yourself, whether it's your product, your service, your business, or just yourself. I mean, there are individuals that have individual websites and individual podcasts just for themselves to market themselves to other companies or other businesses or other colleagues and peers.
Exactly. And it's very smart for them to do that as long as they're ethical. Most people are. They don't want to get sued to oblivion and back, but you are going to come across some, and if it bothers you and you think, that doesn't sound quite right, keep on going. Keep on scrolling, something else will come along.
So let's talk. You've said it a couple of times. Let's talk about the ethical component of podcasting as marketing. Tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Oh boy. Um, that could be a whole nother show. Honestly, I learned very, very early on. Again, nobody taught me anything. I'm completely self-taught and glad for it because I don't know. My nav system says go left and I fight. It's not the boss of me. So I don't take instructions very well. But what I found very, very early on is that once I realized I had an audience, it might be three people, but I had an audience. And more than that, I had promised that I would be there every Friday. And I broke that promise way early on. And I broke faith with my friend who said, "Are you okay?" And I broke faith with me. So if I tell you as a guest that, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, I do it. For instance, I mean, I interview a lot of authors, a lot, a lot, a lot. And I have hundreds, hundreds of books in this room. And when I tell them that I'm going to read the book, review the book, it's on Goodreads, it's Amazon, it's going to go here, there, and yonder on my social media, it will be in my blog. I do it because, listen, y'all who are authors, and if you took the time to send me that book, I'm going to market 101 all over you. You're going to be seen and shown because I will have read it and I am grateful to have it.
Joe, what are your thoughts on?
No, I think we've tried to follow that same premise in our podcast is when we say we're going to do something, we do it. I mean, even this season, going into the season, we said we're going to have uh 52 guests, at least one guest a week, and that's what we're trying to accomplish even today. So I think agree with you, Denise. That is very important. That you as small, no matter how small your audience is, they still deserve the best of you and what you say you're going to do so that they'll come back. So I completely agree with that.
And it happens. I spend a little bit of time in Reddit. There's a podcast group over there that I kind of scrape for information. Think, oh, that's a good thought. Oh, I can write an article on that. And one of the things that seems to be popping up pretty regularly is that people are not grateful to be a guest or to be a host. It's not a one and done. This is not transactional. If you are like you and I, both, we're guests and we're hosts, it's not transactional. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear from my audience. I want to make that connection with you. I want Christmas cards next year. It happens, by the way. So, connections. Say, if you're going to do it, do it. If you can create connections, good connections, not, having bots go attack people but good connection. It's not that difficult on Facebook or Twitter or you just find people that you like the looks of them, and you send them a quick note. Do not on LinkedIn, for the love of God, immediately send me a pre-typed thing that says what you're going to do for my podcast. I'll block you. That's as far as you're going to get. So be consistent and thoughtful about connections. You don't just accept everybody. You just don't go look for everybody. You target your audience and you learn. Once you're making these connections, you're learning. You're like in your own little university there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
See, it didn't make sense to me as soon as I heard it. So,
Yeah,
sorry.
and we believe that too. You have to, it has to be a genuine want to connect,
Yeah.
whether the person wants to be on the podcast or not. We've invited a lot of people, and we've wound up having great connections. They didn't necessarily want to be on the podcast, but we have a great network and great relationship with them. And it's just amazing the power of a podcast when you develop it and you refine it. It took Joe and I a couple of years to get to where we are, just to figure out the groove and the mode that we wanted to operate in. And it started last year, late last year, really, and it kind of exploded on us, if you will, because we're like, well, let's have more guest speakers. And so we started sending out invitations to people, our peers and colleagues. And then 2 weeks later, Joe said, shut the door. I have a holiday at the end of the year coming up, and now we're booked with, interviews
I'm
and
laughing because you're speaking my language. I had to shut down for 3 months.
it's like Joe's like, Dave, I'm still working full time. Hey, we gotta close the doors a little bit so we can schedule this stuff out. We can't be doing, 5 introductions a day, which was crazy when we did, and so yeah, to your point, that's one of the reasons why we have pre-interviews or introduction meetings, because we want to make sure it's a good fit. We want to understand that person. We want to get to know them to ensure there's a good vibe. And not everyone, to your point, not everyone's a good fit, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. And yeah, it's really amazing when the connections you can make and the relationships you can develop. That's how Joe and I met, not on a podcast, but on LinkedIn. I reached out to him because I was looking for someone else that was like me, someone that was prior military enlisted that had a doctorate degree, and there's not very many of us out there. And I remember Joe at first was kind of like, who the heck is this guy? And then next thing you know, it was 8 years later, we're talking at least once a week for a half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes.
And I've listened to you guys. Now, I have to say on YouTube, I don't do well with watching. I get irritated. Too much motion. I don't know what's all about, but I don't, or eyebrow twitching, that bugs me too. But anyway, I will listen to you guys, but I turn the video off. And that way, because I hear, and what you guys are doing is very smart. You're addressing, through your marketing 101, you're addressing through video, you're addressing through audio. You're giving people opportunities to learn where they learn. Me, I learn by reading, and listening and sometimes breaking things. Okay, often I break things and I fix it back up. That's how I started my web development business. But it's it's pretty amazing once you start making these connections. You're going to find this out, guys. I have these books, I'm looking at them. I have connections with people from 9, 10, 11, 12 years ago. We still talk. In some cases, we're still doing business. It's marketing 101, but it's not a selfish thing. Be who you are. You can't keep rebranding yourself. Have you guys seen this? You'll see this person, pretty famous guy, and all of a sudden he's rebranded as something else. I'm like, okay, now I don't trust you. So
Mhm.
my best advice is whatever you're going to do when you're branding your podcast, you're creating content, always be you. Pick your persona, keep it as close to real life as you can, and don't deviate from it. People will notice and you will lose credibility, whether it's in the podcast arena or in marketing in general.
No, I think you're spot on, Denise. That is one of the challenges that we faced, like Dave said, late last year when we started to ramp up and get more guests. And that's what was happening. We started getting people that, wanted to come on and promote their book and do those types of things. And we were like, that's not what our podcast is about. It's about, again, development. And so you're absolutely correct. That's what we tried to do from day one. Our podcast was intentional about helping other people, and that's what it remains today, because we have had people want to be on our podcast to do certain things. And we're like, that's not really in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish. And so we agree 100%. We're still the same, people that started almost 4 years ago.
Right. And
Oh,
that's apparent. I mean, I
yeah.
did, a quick look at you guys whenever you, I looked you up in Perplexity. I love Perplexity. I like chat too, but I really like Perplexity. And it gave you, I think I told you this in our virtual green room. It gave you guys glowing references. I said, okay, because I will go to chat or Perplexity and say, okay, who are these people? Why would they be a good fit for my podcast? Because if you want to talk to me about the UN or LGBT purple, no, not going to happen. It's not me. I'm not going to be interested. You do you, but you're not going to do that on my show. And to your point, Dr. Joe, I have often felt, and this is why, like you, I do the pre-interview. If your goal is to come onto my podcast and treat me as a billboard,
Right.
in the deep south, we say that ain't happening, hun. So that would
Right.
be a no. But because of the pre-interviews, it almost never happens.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a very powerful tool. Web pages too, and it took Joe and I a couple of different iterations to find what fit us and our personality and our goals and our aesthetics for the podcast. And even the introduction music, we tried without, we tried with, we were sent a notice, you can't, that's not a, it's not a free sound bite. We're like, okay, so we took it off. We didn't realize that. Lesson learned early on. So we had my son, he plays guitar, and he made us a custom intro. And it's like, that was so cool because that's part of our branding. That's us being us, saying, we can do this. You just, that's part of it was developing our confidence to have a podcast and
Yeah, that's a
remain
big deal.
and
Big deal.
oh yeah, yeah. Joe and I, before we even recorded the first two ugly things that will never see the light of day, we tried scripting, we tried reading, and it was like it was like a really really bad version of a TV show that was not prepared to be live.
Well,
And
you
we were
know what
like,
I did when I said I was a podcaster the next day, I wasn't joking, but I was smart enough to go after people that knew a lot more people than I did and that were you fairly well known. I interviewed Bob Berg. I interviewed Larry Winget. He's retired now, but Dina, what is he? Personal pit bull. I know him. He's been on my show for many, many years, but right now I'm looking at his book and I still can't come up with pit bull. But anyway, I this is when I realized after I had that Friday call and I didn't have a guest again, and I went, either I shut it down now or I pull up my big girl panties and go get it done. I said I would do this, I'm gonna go do it. So I left a note, but this is before iMessage or any of that stuff. I had to act somehow on Facebook. I had to reach him, and I think I just went in through his what do you call it? His not business page, but his fan page. Because I was a fan of Larry Winget's. I had his books. I had watched an old TV show that he did where he would just knock the bejeebers out of idiots who were spending all their money on Prada but couldn't pay for the cat food. And he was just knocking them around. And, I sent him a very nice note and told him that I, interviewed a fair number of his buddies because they're all in the National Speakers Association, which I had access to at the time. And it was, I just sent him a note, told him who I was, who I had interviewed, and that I was a fan of, this episode, and I would love for him to come on my podcast. And I went into the front room, and I'm not sure I didn't throw up on my own feet. I was worried. It was not good. I remember sticking my head in the fridge and going, breathe, breathe, calm down. And about 15 minutes later, I came back in here to the, command center and looked at Facebook. He said, sure, okay. I went, I
Wow.
was I was just gone for the rest of the day. So my point is, if you say you're going to do it, if you don't know how to do it, you find help, ask questions. Listen, we're all the same. We really, as a rule, want to be helpful. That's what you guys do. So just ask us. If we can't help you, we'll say no. If we're, decent human beings, and most of them are, but if we say, no, I can't, but let me make this suggestion to you, that also opens up new connections. Be you, be polite, use your empathy, and do what I did in the very beginning. Y'all want to know how I got other people? Because I didn't know what to do. So I introduced them and I let them run. And I basically learned to sit down and shut up. And it worked. So, but I do more listening than I do talking. I really want my guests to be who they came into the world to be. And that's why you guys are coming on.
I would appreciate
Yeah, we
that.
appreciate that, and I want to just echo what you had mentioned about reaching out to people. Joe and I were before we started. We started with guest speakers that we knew personally,
Right.
colleagues, and that was a great way for us to build our confidence with having guest speakers and understanding how to get the rhythm right. And a couple of our guest speakers said, "Well, if you want that person on your show, on your podcast, reach out to them.
Exactly.
Either they're not going to respond, they're going to say yes, or they're going to say no. And if they don't respond, wait a little bit, ask them again, and keep asking until they respond. They're either going to say no, absolutely not, or they'll be like, yeah, that sounds great, or maybe they'll still ignore you. We don't know, but so we reach out to people that we think would be great for our podcast and have a great message to send to other people. So I'm going to pause for a moment, let us know that we have about 2 minutes left uh, before we wrap up. So, Denise, what are your final thoughts? What are your final ideas that you want to leave with people as it pertains to podcasting as marketing?
Get your voice heard. Nobody is going to hear you unless you get your voice heard, whether it's becoming a guest. And listen, there are a lot of podcasters who are looking for guests. You don't need to have a huge persona following you around. Most of us want to interview people who have stuff to share. They've got wisdom to give away. We want people who can teach us. But get your voice heard. Get out there, start listening, start studying. There's a lot of free information on how to start a podcast. Or be a guest. I would start with being a guest, truly. So, find a way to get on other people's podcasts and leverage their audience. That's marketing 101. There's so much more, but we don't have time. So,
Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, again, Denise just validated, kind of what the way we started, and that's how it started for me, Denise. Someone asked me to be on their podcast, and I was on their podcast, and I came back to Dave and I said, you know what, that was a great experience, and that planted the bug for me and him to think about a podcast. It was probably a year later that we launched
Sure.
our podcast, but we had that first initial conversation about that because I was on someone else's podcast. So I agree 100%. And again, I thank you for everything that you just share with us. Helps us know that we're going down the right path, the things we're doing currently and some of the things we can do. So really appreciate you taking your time today and being on the podcast with us. It's been much appreciated. So thank you.
No, it was my pleasure to be invited. And listen, what you guys are giving to your audience, I don't think that can be, I don't know, simplified. You guys are giving an awful lot to clearly a hungry audience who need you. So I'm glad to know you.
Well,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much for that. That means the world to us.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I don't have anything of value to add, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and close out the show. We want to thank our viewers and listeners for joining us on another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, your personal, professional, and career development podcast. If you'd like to reach out to Denise for her services or to connect with her, we'll have her information in the description. And with that, we want you to keep on being your not so ordinary you.